Hi, everyone, and welcome to Brian's Horror Corner. I'm your host, Brian, and welcome to day 30 of my 31 horror movies in October Halloween series. So, today we're going to take a look at another horror anthology that's very much related to Halloween. In fact, it's in the title, and that is Tales of Halloween from 2015. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. The way I'm going to do this is because there's so many shorts in this movie, and to try to make it more efficient, I'm just going to go through the setup, the premise, and the stories. Um, I'm not going to go through the cast or too much about the directors because there's so many, and then I'll give you my thoughts and review, which will be spoiler free. So let's just go ahead and get into it because I got a lot of pages. It's kind of a long anthology. So, Tales of Halloween is a 2015 American comedy horror anthology film consisting of 10 interlocking segments, each revolving around the holiday. Segments were directed by Neil Marshall, Darren Lynn Bousman, uh, Excel Carolyn, X, Axel Carolyn, Lucky McGee, Andrew Cash, Paul Solet, John Skip, Adam Gurash, and Jace Anderson, Mike Menendez, Ryan Schifrin, and Dave Parker. Whew, it's a lot of directors. The 10 stories take place in a suburban American town whose denizens are terrorized by ghouls, aliens, and killers one Halloween night as DJ Adrian Barbeau adds her commentary to a few of them. So yeah, that's kind of how we're introduced. We start with Adrian Barbeau on the radio show, which is obviously a callback to The Fog, um, which was fun. And then we basically get into our first segment. So the first segment, and I'll just go through these quickly with a short premise. Sweet Tooth is the name of the first segment, where Mikey has just finished trick or treating, having come home with a full bag of candy. His parents have left him in the care of babysitter Lizzie, who's invited her boyfriend Kyle over to watch. As Mikey begins to enjoy his candy, he's collected. Lindsay and Kyle advise him to leave some for Sweet Tooth. Sweet Tooth. The next one is entitled "The Night Billy Raised Hell." Billy Thompson, dressed as a red devil and accompanied by his older sister Brittany and her boyfriend Todd, tries to begin trick or treating early in the afternoon. The two teens trick Billy into playing a prank that, according to them, has been going on for years. They prepare an egg. They prepare an egg to Billy. They prepare an egg. They give an egg to Billy to throw at the house of Mr. Abaddon, a notorious, a notoriously stingy resident of the neighborhood who has never given out any candy over the years. Before Billy can throw the egg, he is caught red-handed by Mr. Abaddon, who takes the egg and throws it at Todd as he and Brittany flee, and then he ushers Billy Thompson into his house. The next one's entitled Trick. On a seemingly beautiful or peaceful Halloween night, close friends Nelson, Maria, James, and Caitlin are lounging around Nelson's house, smoking pot, giving out candy, and watching Night of the Living Dead. As Nelson goes to greet a female trick or treater dressed as a witch, the girl suddenly stabs him multiple times in the abdomen, gravely injuring him. The next one's The Weak and the Wicked. Alice, a sociopath, leather clad pyromaniac bully, along with her lackeys Isaac and Bart, corner a trick or treater lost in an alleyway. Before Alice can extinguish her cigar in the kid's foot, she and her goons are interrupted by a teenager dressed as some sort of creature. The teenager hands Alice a drawing of a creature referred to as the Demon of All Hallows Eve, warning Alice that the demon will spill the blood of the wicked where the wicked have harmed the weak. Then the next one is Grim Grinning Ghost. Lynn attends her mother's Halloween party. While there, Lynn listens to her mother recount the story of Mary Bailey, a girl who has mocked all her life for her disfigured physical appearance. As a ghost, Mary rises from the grave every Halloween to laugh at people's appearances behind their backs, as well as take the eyes of those who turn around to look at her. The next one is called Ding Dong. 1 year ago, married couple Jack and Bobby watch as children trick or treat on Halloween night. Bobby is distraught by the fact that she has no children of her own, prompting Jack to try and cheer her up by dressing their dog as Gretel. Suddenly angered by his gesture, Bobby transforms into her true form, a red skinned demonic witch with multiple arms, and proceeds to claw at Jack's face. Then we got This Means War. Boris has proudly finished decorating his house for Halloween, setting up a classic graveyard themed display, complete with an animatronic talking skeleton. When children are about to observe the decorations, they are scared away from the place by blaring rock music. The music is revealed to come from the house of Boris's new neighbor, Dante, a punk rock enthusiast who has set up a far more gruesome and gore-oriented set of decorations on his house. Ugh, sorry, I'm fighting a cold not right now, guys. I'm actually not crying over these. My eyes are watering a little. Then we have Friday the 31st. Deep in the woods, a deformed serial killer who resembles Jason Voorhees hunts down a teenage girl dressed as Dorothy for Halloween. The girl runs into a barn where she discovers several of the killer's dismembered victims. Along them, Among them, her friend Casey. The killer tracks her to the barn, and when she manages to escape and flee, he throws a spear through her chest. As the killer celebrates his most recent slaying, a UFO suddenly appears overhead. Then we have the ransom of Rusty Rex. Bank robber Hank and his partner Dutch, lounging in their van, spot millionaire Jebediah Rex letting his son Rusty go out for trick or treating. Seeing this, the two robbers set out on a plan to kidnap the millionaire's son and hold him for ransom. After succeeding in capturing Rusty, the kidnappers tie him into a chair and call his father. However, Jebediah seems not to express fear about the fact that his son has been kidnapped, tells the kidnappers that they have made a terrible mistake, and promptly hangs up the phone. And finally, we get to the bad seed. Ray is seen carving pumpkins in his kitchen as his wife Ellen appreciates his work. When she leaves the room, comes back and in changed into her cat costume, she watches as the latest pumpkin her husband carves suddenly comes to life, bites his head off growing spider growing spider-like roots for legs and fleeing out the back door. Detective McNally is called to investigate the crime scene, as most of the police department are busy dealing with the emergencies portrayed earlier in the film. That's a lot of shorts to go through, man, and that's one of many problems with this movie. I shouldn't say that. I actually really enjoy this movie, especially as a Halloween anthology. But one of my big problems with it is the amount of shorts. But we'll get into that now that I'm going to start my review for it. So, Tales of Halloween from 2015. I have a lot more pros than cons, just so you know. I enjoy this movie more than I don't. Um, Sorry, guys, I'm fighting a cold. Um, So we'll start with the pros for this movie, and you got to start with the Halloween atmosphere. This has fantastic Halloween atmosphere, images, mood throughout the entire movie. Is this an every year Halloween watch? Question mark for me. Well, I would say it probably is because it has great Halloween vibes. Obviously, I mean, although I will say, just because you have Halloween in the title does not necessarily mean it's going to have the kind of atmosphere I'm looking for. A prime example of that is All Hallows Eve from 2013. That was a good anthology, but not didn't have the Halloween atmosphere that I was promised with the title. This one does, and that's definitely one of the things it definitely has going for it on a pro level. I don't think any of the shorts, aside from how many there are, I don't think any of them are flat out awful to where I would skip them when I'm watching this movie every year. They all work pretty well for what they are. There's definitely some better than others, in my opinion, for me anyway. But there's no real duds, I wouldn't say. Even some of my least favorite of this, which I'll get into when I go through my uh, the ones I liked and the ones I didn't like. None of them are flat out awful, in my opinion. Some of them just work better for me than others do. Um, I did like the connectivity they had of all the shorts, not so much through a wraparound story because they don't really have one in this movie. But all the fact that all these stories take place in the same suburban town on the same Halloween night, and you have characters and trick or treaters crossing over into different shorts, so you know you're all in the same universe, so to speak. That's one of my favorite thing about horror anthologies is that connective tissue, and this movie it succeeds to a certain extent, but it also flounders to a certain extent. And I'll get into that more as we go here. But I did enjoy that aspect of it, mentioning the other shorts and that we see, especially as we get towards the end of the movie. Um, there's some crossover there and some connective tissue. So that was good. Um, it has the same tone and vibe throughout, despite so many different directors in this movie. That's kind of rare because usually when you have so many different directors directing so many different shorts, when you watch movies like the ABCs of Death, for example, is a prime example. You have all these different directors, which is cool to allow so much work to so many different people, but you don't have a cohesive film. It feels very much like they just took different shorts and edited them all into one movie. Where I will say in this movie, it feels like all the directors that were involved watched the different shorts, and even though they had different stories that they told and different directing styles, it all works more cohesively in this movie. It just feels like they weren't quite so how do I want to describe it? It's kind of like they watched all the other directors' shorts before they made their own, I guess is the best way to say it. And because of that, it feels very much in the same vein, despite having so many different directors doing these shorts. It feels like the same movie, which it should be. Nothing really feels out of place. None of these shorts are like, well, why the fuck was that in there? That had nothing to do with the rest of these. Like you even get in All Hallows, even some other Halloween anthology movies. So I give it credit for that. That was definitely a pro. Another pro I have to mention is I really enjoyed all the cameos of the horror community, people that we see from the actors and actresses to directors, that you see, even if they're just in the background and don't have any lines, but you see them throughout these tales and stories. It just added more fun and entertainment to the overall movie to see who you can pick out and say, hey, that's so from such and such. That was just really cool, a really fun aspect to the movie. Um, this movie has great cinematography. The movie looks great with a high production value, even though I don't think it had a high budget. But from a production value standpoint, they did a really phenomenal job. It looks very polished and effective overall. All the shorts do. I really like the mostly practical effects that were used throughout the movie, especially as it relates to the gore and the kills. Really effective practical makeup effects as well on certain characters, whether they were killers or ghouls or ghosts or whatever have you, people that were killed. Very effective effects on with that kind of very effective practical effects and makeup effects. I really like the comedy and humor aspects of the movie, more in some shorts than others, certainly. Um, it's kind of hard to tell what they were going for. I know it does say that it's a horror comedy anthology, kind of more like Scare Package, even though I would argue that doesn't work quite as well as Scare Package, because with Scare Package it's definitely a horror anthology. They were going humor. With some of the stories here, it's back and forth. Some of the stories try to be more serious, even though they might have one joke or two in there. Sorry, guys, I have to turn off my printer here. It's making noise in the background. I apologize for that. But um, the comedy when they have it here works for me in some of the stories. Like there's three I would say that the comedy really works well for me. In other stories, it's kind of like, am I supposed to laugh at that? Or so it's a little bit of a more of a mix. But I did enjoy the humor aspects that were there that worked for me. While still having the horror aspects, not necessarily scary, but the gore and the blood and the kills. And on that note, the blood and the kills and the gore are more of the fun, entertaining variety than they are the disturbing, horrific variety, which is effective for being more of a horror comedy anthology. Like I like blood and gore more when it's like over the top, fun, just like Scare Package. Um, you get like there's one part where you get a couple characters' heads decapitated and you got blood squirting from it, but you can tell it's fun movie gore, movie blood. It's just yeah, I enjoyed that aspect of it, and I really enjoyed the opening credit segment as well. It was very well directed, and it looks really cool. Where it's kind of like this model of the town with the sort of haze over it as the opening credits are coming down, and you start hearing Adrienne Barbeau's voice coming on. She's basically the wraparound story, her being on the radio, and she kind of intermixes with some of the shorts, not all of them, like before they start. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really effective way to start the movie. And I'll get into what my favorite segments were here in a minute. I'm going to just do the overall cons that I have. The biggest con, as you could probably tell as I was going through the 10 different stories and started to do a lot of sighing at the end, is it's just that. There's just too many stories in this movie. I just think that ten shorts in a horror anthology movie are just too many. I think 3 to 5 are much more effective and tend to make the best horror anthologies. Even though I don't hate any of these shorts, as I mentioned in my pros, I still feel like overall for the movie, it's just too many. And the problem with having so many compared to the standard 3 to 5 that work best is because you don't get the flushed out characters, you don't get the flushed out story, the development that you could otherwise have if you have 3, 4, 5 short stories. When you have 10 like this, you just there's just not a lot of flushed out material. It's very surface level. Now, I will say there's one short that does a better job than the rest of them in terms of giving us some character background, and it's one of my favorite ones. And more of a flushed out story through some flashbacks. We'll get into that, but overall, that's the problem with having so many. It's very surface level stories, and we just don't have a lot to sink our teeth into. So I think 10 is too many, and that's the biggest thing that sort of hinders this as a horror anthology movie. Also, you can't really. Oh, wait a minute, I lost my spot here. Also, you can't develop them. Also, they don't take the time to develop a connective wraparound story by having so many shorts. Like I said, the wraparound is Adrienne Barbeau, which is great. I love hearing her voice. I could listen to her all day. But you don't have that wraparound story that I'm looking for that I really like because you have so many shorts. You just don't have time to develop one here. So that's another negative to that. I feel like some of the shorts, especially the ones that had more serious tones, they could have made them scarier than what they were. There's not a lot of scares or horror in this movie in terms of a psychological scary standpoint. The horror comes more from the blood, the gore, and the kills. I was just never really scared or creeped out throughout the movie, although I really did enjoy the Halloween atmosphere. But as a horror anthology, the scares and the horror just kind of fall flat. And then my final con is I think the acting's pretty inconsistent. Obviously, again, you have so many stories, you have so many actors throughout all these stories, as well as directors. It's pretty up and down as far as the acting goes. I think the directing's actually better. I don't think the directing's is up and down in all these stories. I think that's more cohesive and well directed, but pretty much all the shorts. But acting wise, it's pretty inconsistent. Very much like the shorts overall themselves in this movie. So that's basically my overall thoughts as far as pros and cons go on Tales of Halloween. Like I said, my one big con is just having so many short stories. 10 is too many. 5 would have been perfect. I could tell you the 5 when I'm done here that they should have just focused on and developed and spent more time on with having a wraparound story in between. And had they done this, this would be probably one of my 2 or 3 favorite horror anthology movies and Halloween anthology movies. As it is, I still really enjoy it. It probably will be an overall Halloween watch for me every year. I will say that overall, my favorite segments in this movie are the first 4 overall, which are Sweet Tooth, The Night Billy Raised Hell, Trick, and The Weak and the Wicked. The reason I love Sweet Tooth so much is that one actually had a little bit of tension, a really interesting backstory. It's not the one I was referring to though, as far as like the development goes. I'll get into that. That's number 4, The Weak and the Wicked. But and Sweet Tooth also had really good gore and kills. And I also thought that the look of Sweet Tooth himself was pretty effective. So that's why I like that one. The Night That Billy Raised Hell. This is just a really fun one. It has humor that worked for me in it. Also has a nice twist at the end. Good costume designs and good makeup effects. This was just a fun, more of a humorous one. The third one, Trick, I really enjoyed because it has a really nice twist at the end. Some good kills, and a little bit of humor as well. It had just a nice variety there. And The Weak and the Wicked is the one with the sort of gang members that sort of pick on the weak and sort of bully them. This one is good on a variety of levels because it's more serious, but we actually do get more of a backstory through flashbacks and some backstory as far as characters go. And then we get a nice twist at the end as well, which again has a good look, good production design. And then my other favorite is Bad Seed, which is the final short. This is the one that's very much an homage to Halloween 3. Um, where we get the pumpkin that comes to life and bites the husband's head off, and then you get an investigation and sort of a mystery of what's going on. I thought the look of the pumpkin when it comes alive was really effective, and I don't know if it's probably some CGI. I'm not really sure, but if it is CGI, it was effective CGI for me. So those are the 5 I really enjoyed. I think they should have just stuck to those 5 with a nice wraparound story in the middle, or at the beginning and the end, and some in the middle. I think it would have made an even better anthology movie. My least favorite, I would have to say, Again, none of them were terrible, but Ding Dong really didn't do it for me. Although I will say that Pollyanna McIntosh, she does a really good job as the witch. She has one of the great acting performances in this entire movie, in my opinion. But as far as the story itself goes, it didn't really do much for me. This Means War, which is more of a humorous one, I kind of felt disappointed by it. I mean, it started with a really good premise and it made me laugh a couple times, but it kind of ends abruptly. I think that one could have been more flushed out and developed. Um, the Ransom of Rusty Rex. That one was okay. It had a good look to Rusty Rex, and I guess you could say a nice twist. Although I don't think that twist works as well as some other ones. As I said, none of them are bad. Friday the 31st is okay. It's a parody of a Friday the 13th movie. Basically, Friday the 13th meets the living or the living um, the Evil Dead. It has a lot of those combination vibes and supernatural and or alien and slasher. I haven't seen one that really combines that well yet. Shit, I'm making this video way too long. I knew that was going to happen with this movie. And Grim Grinning Ghost has a nice story with some really cool cameos, but overall, that one didn't really blow my hair back too much. The reason I mentioned Night of the Living Dead is because that's playing a lot in the background in a lot of these stories. So just a little nod there. But I know this video is absorbently long, as is this movie in terms of 10 tales. But overall, guys, I enjoyed this. I think it works well as a Halloween anthology, Halloween atmosphere movie than it does a horror anthology. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I like about half the stories. The other half, five up, five down, basically. But when I say down, again, I want to reiterate, I don't hate any of them. I'll watch them. But I gave you the five that they should have stuck with, developed more with a wraparound story. But good movie, good Halloween movie. It's good to watch around Halloween, especially the days leading up to Halloween or on Halloween. It's not the best Halloween anthology movie. You'll see which one that is, in my opinion, coming up on maybe my last day of this series. But it's a good Halloween watch. 7.5 out of 10. Go ahead and tell me what you guys think of Tales of Halloween. Your pros and cons for it. What you think if I'm off base with how many stories there are, or if I'm spot on. It's all opinion related. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell below so you don't miss my last day of this 31 horror series, as well as what I got coming up in November. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of my great horror content coming up that I have planned for you. Thanks for watching this very long video, but thanks for sticking it out. Stay scared. Bye.